Okay, I'm gonna lift my nail and kind of approach the cone that I created at the angle that the cone is at. So right now it's about 45 degrees. So I'm gonna angle my piping tip with the wide part of the teardrop down and the narrow part on top. I'm gonna kind of match that angle and start slowly piping and spinning my nail at the same time. Okay, and when I get to the end, I'm gonna follow through and kind of just swipe it down. So when I'm piping this center cone, notice that I didn't move my hand to overlap that tip. What I did was I just spun the nail. You don't need to go around and try to force that petal. You just want it to gently and delicately lay on there. Try to get a closed tip as much as possible. You don't want too much white showing, so I'll just show you an example of what happens if you don't go too close to the tip and cover it. You'll see a lot of the white. Most roses do have a really tight center, so what we want to do is try to achieve something as tight as this. Now, you can fix this if you wanted to by just piping another petal on top of it. Just again, match the angle. Go ahead and do that, and then you're ready to pipe your inner petals on this as well. But we'll continue with the one that we have here. So now that we have our center petal, I'm going to pipe 3 petals around that to kind of envelope or encompass that center. And I'm going to pull those petals higher than the tip of this petal. And I'm going to start pretty low, because if you start high, your flower will get top heavy. So what I want to do is start low and kind of go to the right of where you ended that first petal. So I'm going to the right and I'm down on the base, and I'm going to start up and down. I just spun my nail really slowly while I was applying gentle pressure, and you'll see that it kind of creates this upside down U shape. So all your petals will be in this arrangement, but the more layers you go into, the petals will start getting wider and laying down a little bit more. But for right now, we want a very dramatic U. So I'm going to pipe another petal, and I'm going to start this halfway into where the first petal was piped. Okay, again, nice and high. If you have buildup of buttercream on your tip, you can just wipe that off. And then for my final petal, I want to start again in the middle of my last petal and actually end in the middle of my first petal. So that way, all these petals will be nestled nicely together. Okay? And so you'll see that the center of the flower is really low, so it looks like it's hidden, and then these 3 petals that are nestling around it are creating that first bud kind of look. And you can actually stop right here and keep this as a bud, or you can add more petals to it. But we're actually going to continue and pipe more petals and create a larger flower. So again, an important part of this first layer is that the petals are nestled. After the first petal is piped, the second and third petals should start halfway into the previously piped petal, creating an overlap. So let me show you a couple things that can go wrong when creating these inner petals. Okay, so I have a new cone that is covered with my first petal. And for me, I like to pipe towards my body. But for some people, it's more comfortable to pipe the other way. So if that's the case for you, you can start to the left and then come around this way and pipe your petals in the same fashion, in the same upside down U fashion. Now, another thing I want to talk about is arm movement. So let me get another sample. Okay, notice that when I'm piping my right hand, it's actually only moving up and down. The entire arm is just moving up and down, and the curve is being developed by spinning of the nail. So I'll show you. I'm moving up and down, and that's what's creating this U-shaped petal. If you were to try to force your petal and move your wrist, I'll show you what happens. Okay. It's just very unnatural, and it doesn't really flow very well. You really want, and there's a lot of buildup on the side here, you want more flat petals so that your flower doesn't get too large. So again, I'm just gonna go up, spin, and come down. Okay, so that'll be a nice even petal. Okay, and one other thing I want to talk about is poorly attached petals. Okay, so again, when I'm going to pipe my petals, I really need to adhere the tip to the base that I built. Don't be afraid of it. A lot of people are really afraid to touch their tip to the base because they think that they're gonna ruin it or somehow like it's gonna fall over. But you really need to start close to the base so that the petal will stick nice and sturdy. Like this petal isn't going anywhere. If you don't do that and kind of start off and you're afraid to touch that base, there's gonna be a lot of gaps. You can kind of see it in here. There's gaps in between the petal that you piped and the center. And in that case, as you keep piping, it'll actually start to open up, and even as the room gets warmer and the buttercream settles, your petals may slide. So you really want to make sure that your petals are adhered and stuck really well to the base. So even if I move it around, this petal is secure. I'm just gonna shake this around for you and show you how this is already starting to slide down and open up. So now I'm ready for my next layer of petals. You'll notice that I actually refilled my piping bag with fresh buttercream because it was getting too low, and also the warmth of my hand was making the buttercream really soft. So now I have sturdy buttercream. Okay, so when I start my next layer of petals, again, I'm gonna start pretty low and secure onto the base. And I'm bringing these petals to the same height that I piped the petals previously. Okay, again, this upside down U shape, moving my hand up and down and overlapping the petals. The first layer of petals is the shortest. The second and third layer of petals get a little taller, and then the final layers gradually get shorter as they move outward. So now I'll show you what happens if you aren't mindful of the petal heights. Okay, I have a sample here of a perfectly built rose where the center is the deepest, and then the subsequent petals are a little higher, and then as you get to the last layer, they're lower and more opened up. If you don't gradually heighten your petals and you make the center of your flower the highest, then you'll get kind of a cabbage-looking rose, and you'll see here the petals are getting lower and lower, and none of them went higher than the center, so it doesn't really create a beautiful flower. And then here is an example of also if you don't graduate your petal heights and keep them all flat, you'll have a really boring looking flower with not a lot of dimension to it. So you really want to be sure to change up your petal heights by, again, gradually going up and then gradually going outward and lower as they move out. So I'm going to put these to the side, and then I'm going to finish my flower. Okay, this time I'm piping the petals a little lower again, and also I want to angle my tip as well a little bit wider. Okay, and the petals, as you pipe them, they are widening out. You'll notice that the first petals that were in the center, they were really tall and narrow, but now you'll see that they're a little longer and wider. Okay, so 2, 3, 4, 5. Now I fit 5 petals there. You don't have to actually go by a certain number. It's just whatever you feel like creates that rounded shape. If you feel like you need another one, you can pipe another one, but this has a really nice shape